Our guest speaker today is Dr. Mohammed Mustafa Mahmoud, who is the Executive Director of MILE, the Medina Institute of Leadership and Entrepreneurship. Dr. Mohammed, as well as holding that position, is the Senior Vice President of Organizational Development in Savola Group and is a former advisor to the Mayor of Jeddah. Dr. Mohammed holds a PhD from Wharton School in the University of Pennsylvania and also has the distinction of holding 3 master's degrees. He has experience in working in Canada, USA, Egypt, Kuwait, and more recently in Saudi Arabia. Welcome, Dr. Mohammed.
Welcome, Abdullah, and thank you so much for inviting me for this webinar.
You're most welcome. Before we start, I'd like to ask everyone joining us today to participate by sharing their comments and questions on today's webinar, and also to join the discussion on the MILE website, which is www.mile.org, and our Facebook and LinkedIn pages. So, without further ado, we'll get started. And Dr. Mohammed, you believe that there is an important leadership deficit in the developing world. Why is that?
Thank you, Abdullah, again. And in my capacity as the Vice President of Savola Group, we have operation in 16 countries from Kaza to Kaza, they say from Kazakhstan to Casablanca. And we have experienced that many of our initiatives that we wanted to launch in many of the countries in our region has been constrained to a great extent by the lack of available business leaders who can take our new ideas and implement them in the ground. So Savola started to realize that there is a major leadership deficit gap. This as well was recognized in many reports. There are so many recent reports like the Global Competitiveness Reports, the United Nations Development Program, the Arab Human Development Reports, and so many other reports. All of them testify to the great leadership deficit gap that our region really constraining us from advancing in our economic and social growth. Let me share with you some of the reasons that we think are behind this leadership deficit gap. First, our business schools really are not up to standard at all. As you see in the latest financialtimes.com report of the ranking of the top 100 business schools, when we classify them by country, out of 100, there is 56 of the top business schools in the world located in the United States, 18 in UK, and the remaining in other developed countries, advanced countries, and 0 of them are located in Muslim and Arab countries. The same thing applies to executive education programs. The top 65 executive education programs in the world, 21 of them are located in the United States, 6 in UK, and none located in Arab and Muslim countries. So this, I think, is our first major challenge that we are facing in the region, is the low quality of our business schools. Another challenge is the lack of corporate universities. In the Western economy, most of the big corporations, they have corporate universities within their organization. And these can be justified by the economies of scale. Companies like IBM or Nestle or Procter & Gamble, they have a big in-house training facilities, which can be easily justified with the large scale of their operations and the availability of local professional and training and development societies. There is a main corporate university exchange organization which look after the corporate universities in the world, and if you visit their website, you'll only find one of the top corporate universities are located in a Muslim or Arab countries, which is SABIC, as you see at the bottom side of the screen. The other thing that even in our big companies in our regions who have good training facilities, you will find out that most of those in-house training facilities, they only cater for the entry level or the middle level of the organization, but very few of them are really capable of catering for providing executive education and development opportunities for the senior level. In Savola Group, for example, we have a very strong Savola Academy, and in Panda, which is a retailer that we own, we have a Panda Academy. But those in-house academies cannot cater for our senior executives, and we have to send many of our senior executives every year overseas to attend programs in many other top business school organizations. Another challenge that we have is the limited role of the multinational companies which are operating in the development in our part of the world, in developing our local executives. Their training opportunities usually are limited to the few people who are working in their organization, but does not extend to cater for the remaining population of senior managers in the society. Of course, there are a few exceptions. One of them I can cite, at least the one I know about, is Cisco. They are trying to expand their development programs beyond the people who are working for Cisco. Another challenge that we can think of is the lack of localized executive development tools and resources. Even if we can make the resources available, the financial resources, to set up in-house training programs, you will still find the challenge of not finding good quality case studies to include in your curriculum. You cannot also find local training companies who can contribute to this. Even the business school professors, mainly, I have been a university professor for about 15 years in the business schools in Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. And most of the business school professors, they don't have the practical exposures and experience that make them qualified to contribute to executive education program. They are good enough for the undergraduate programs and graduate programs. Another challenge is some limitation of international executive development programs. As I mentioned earlier, in Savola, we send every year few of our managers to attend programs in Europe and United States in the top executive programs. But some of the challenge that we have witnessed, or limitations of those programs, is the irrelevance of some of the topics to our local needs, especially the case studies. You end up studying case studies which are not really relevant to our local requirements. Also, there is a high cultural irrelevancy that our manager experience when they spend 2 to 3 weeks attending those programs. There is, of course, there is a high profile networking opportunities by attending these programs, but many of those are not really relevant. The networking becomes more relevant when you have people who share the same concern or come from close by geographical location, who can do business in the futures together. Also, we experienced problem with accessibility. Many of our managers who has been accepted into programs and paid for them, and they have difficulty in obtaining the required visa, which usually takes many weeks to obtain, and we had to cancel many of our registration. Also, the long travel time and the associated jet lag make the total period that people spend not so much, that waste so much of their time. And many of those programs, only few people can afford to attend these programs because they are somewhat expensive.